Hello, everyone. Good evening, dear audience, fellow classmates. My name is Aguilar, and I'm going to talk about introduce to a new and revolutionary project.
Nowadays, English has become a very important tool for education. That's why the aim of the project is to encourage young students to open their frontiers by learning a new language, with the support of our teachers and educational platforms.
Language is
Language is an essential component for self-development. It opens you a wide range of social and lateral possibilities that can bring you so many benefits that will help you achieve your goals. We have prepared you some objectives that we want to achieve on this project.
The general objective. The aim of the UTPL Innovation Project is to open the world to students and provide them not only labor possibilities, also social and cultural traveling possibilities by breaking the language barrier. Students, by the end of this project, must be capable of communicate to each other in terms of a foreign language.
I'm going to tell you some specific objectives. Make students acquire the ability to express their thoughts and scientific knowledge in English. Make students solve problems and deal with the solution in a foreign language. And also make them develop language fluency and a correct grammatical construction. And finally, teach students different methods of learning a new language and their daily routine. Now, we have the pleasure to introduce you to Jackie. Hello, Jackie, welcome. You're mute, Jackie, we can't hear you.
Sorry. There we go. Hello, everybody. Hello. So good to see you, Daniel and Emily.
Good to see you too.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So, Jackie, tell us about a little bit about you and how you some things have happened to you in your life.
Like your classmates said, my name is Jackie Sario. The last country I lived in is the United States. I have been there for most of my life. I am half Japanese and I am originally from Japan. So I'm an immigrant to the United States and now I'm an immigrant here to Ecuador. I am, like many of you, I am very proud and I'm very happy about my heritage, both my heritage from my mother's side in Japan and also from my father's side in North America. I think after some conversation with Daniel and with Emily, I think something I want to share with everybody is a subject that is very important to me and to my family. My family name, my Japanese side, is Otani. We are Otani from Hiroshima. My mother and that side of the family are all survivors of the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. And I thought I can talk with you about what my mother experienced on that day. Can I just keep explaining, or do you have some questions for me, Daniel and Emily?
Okay, you can continue. It's very
okay.
Nice.
Okay, thank you. My mother was 17 years old, and there was an island in the bay of Hiroshima. Mitaka was the name of the village my mother and my family lived on. My mother at the time was working as a housemaid at a Japanese officer's military camp on that island in the bay by Hiroshima. She worked 6 days a week and went home on the 7th day, Sunday. So one morning on a Monday, she took the ferry from her part of the island where the village was, and the ferry went all the way around to another part of the island where the military camp was. Her shift started much later in the day, and the ferry arrived very early. So she was sitting down on the tatami floor in this building that was used as a rest area for the employees. And she had her elbows up on the windowsill and her chin resting on her hands, waiting to start work, and she was looking out the window across the bay toward the city. And she told me, she said, suddenly there was this dome of light. It just went poof, like this over the city. It was blue with sparkles. And she told me she immediately ran out of the building and started running toward the bomb shelter. And when she was running to the bomb shelter, the shock waves hit, and all the glass windows along the side of the road, of the buildings along the side of the road, started exploding all around her, and she was showered with glass as she kept running toward the bomb shelter. When she arrived at the bomb shelter, it was too late. They had already closed the bomb shelter down. But 6 of the highest ranking military officers at that training camp remained outside to watch and see what was happening. And my mother stood with them, and they watched. They watched the mushroom cloud come up like this and spread out like this, like a mushroom cap. And she told me it was gray in color, but the top of the cap was red, like the color of rubies, and it just bubbled like this. She told me nobody knew what it was. Nobody. There was a very large natural gas storage tank in the city of Hiroshima. They were thinking maybe that was bombed. They don't know. They were also, the Japanese military was also waiting for the amphibious invasion for the West and for Russia to come and land on Japan and keep fighting. And so they had, on a small island in the bay, they had some weapons stored, ready to use for the invasion. And maybe they thought the US found that island and they bombed the island, and that's how this mushroom cloud started. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. My grandparents and some of my mother's siblings, like I said, were on another part of the island. And my grandparents were immediately worried for my family who were still in Hiroshima. They took a rowboat, and they rowed across the bay to Hiroshima to see if they could start looking for family. But when the boat got to a dock in Hiroshima, the dock was in flames, and they could not land. And so they had to turn around and come back. And my grandparents, they left every morning looking for family in the city. My mother, like I said, she worked at the military officers training camp in another part of the island. She remained there for another 6 days. And on the 6th day, all the young men, they were teenagers, they were sent home because by then the emperor and the generals had surrendered. And that was when my mother went back to my grandparents' house, and she also with them started to go to the city every day and search for our family that they were hoping were still there. I lost 2 cousins. They were children. One was an infant. Another one was a little over 2 years old. I lost them both directly from the explosion. I had other relatives who survived, and many of them died from radiation afterwards. I had one aunt who developed leukemia and died about 3 years later. My mother saw some horrible things. Obviously, she talked about taking the rowboat with my grandparents and landing at the dock and starting to go down the city streets and calling out names. She said by the time she was able to help my parents, it had been 1 week since the bomb had dropped. And by then they had taken all the dead bodies on the roads and just moved them aside so that other trucks and other vehicles can go through. It took, and that is just one example of horrible things that happened. It's a difficult situation to place judgment, I think. I want you to know that Japanese people, especially then, they were very, very loyal to each other and very loyal to their country. And they were willing to fight until there were no Japanese left. And so my mother, as a teenager, 17 years old, was being trained hand-to-hand combat to fight for her country when the soldiers from the United States, Russia, Canada, Australia, when they all were ready, if they all came to Japan, my mother was going to be out there with the knife at the end of the stick to fight. There would have been no Japanese left. There would be no me. I don't know what is the best thing to do. I don't know. I want to share my mother's story with you. I want to share it with you, not, like I said, to place judgment, but I want you to know that just like the Holocaust in Europe, we cannot ever forget what happened in Japan. We can never forget that. And also, I want you to know that we don't understand everything. You don't know the Japanese people like I know. I'm from there. It's my first language. I live there. My grandfather had said something had to be done to end the war, or nobody would be left, and the atomic bomb ended the war. At the same time, the atomic bomb has left a legacy. Not only all of these innocent people died, we all have repercussions of that. Everybody still alive who survived the bomb in my mother's side of the family developed cancer. I developed cancer 8 years ago. And I took a test, and it is a genetic abnormality I inherited from my mother, who developed the genetic abnormality from her atomic bomb experience. I just don't know what was the best choice to make. One thing I do know is a lesson I learned from my mother that is very important for me to share with you. My mother had every right in the world to hate North Americans. After everything she has suffered and everything my family has suffered, it would be very normal for her to hate North Americans. She met my father, blue eyes, blonde hair, white North American, and she fell in love. She fell in love with the good man that he was. She didn't look at him as a representative of the country that dropped a nuclear bomb on her. She looked at him as this most fabulous man that I know. And I believe if my mother, who suffered like she did, it's possible for her to look at a North American and just see the man he is as the wonderful man he is. I am capable of that. I am capable of that. My mother's ability to do that, to me, makes her the most beautiful person I have ever met. And I want to be beautiful like that. And I'm not quite there yet. I have more lessons to learn. And I want you to know that you can all be like that. We are all capable of looking at people, human beings on this planet, and enjoy them as each individual people that they are, and not be angry at them because of the country they came from or the religion that they believe in, but be like my mother. She loved my dad because he was wonderful. She didn't care he came from the United States. It didn't matter. And that is beauty. And that is my message from my mother to all of you.
Well, Jackie, first of all, we really appreciate everything that you have told to us, like the confidence for tell us your story. Now we can say that we all understand, or we try to understand, like it was like a really heavy situation that you have passed for, and also your family. It really impacted your, not just your life, like every Japanese family lives. But well, I think that everything happens because of a reason, and now it's just part of your story. So I have a question for you. I want to know, you have told us like everything about your mother, a very brave woman, incredible, and you're the same. But now I want to know, like, what is your lesson for life to tell us?
My lesson, sometimes it is difficult to place judgment when we don't know everything. That is a lesson for me, because I have met so many people, Japanese people and North American people, who have some very bad judgments, and it seems that those judgments are reasonable when you don't know everything. So that is a lesson I learned. Another lesson is different countries and different cultures have, it seems like we all have our own definition of beauty. I think one universal definition that everybody can probably agree on is kindness and love and acceptance. I think that is, those three words describe a universal form of beauty. That is my mother.
Thank you very much.
I'm inspired to become more like her every day.
And in our case, we really admire you, like everything you have passed for, because your experiences have made you the woman that you are now. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
And one last question, Jackie. You told us about beauty, that it was a nice representation of beauty that you gave us. But I want to ask you one last question that is about, what do you think that are the values that someone may have in order to be brave as your mother or brave as you? Can you please tell us the values?
The values? That is a difficult question to answer, because I believe values can be different with everybody, depending on how they grew up, what, you know, and that includes what country are you from, what is your family like. In Japan, there is a saying, you know, there is a mountain that is considered a national treasure in Japan, and it is called Mount Fuji. Okay, there are many artwork, old artwork from Japan that includes this beautiful mountain. It's almost a perfect cone shape with snow near the top, and it is called Mount Fuji. There is a saying that says there are many different paths to the peak of Mount Fuji. You could climb up from different angles, many different angles, and get to the same place. So if you are interested in certain values, I recommend that you listen to your elders at your church. You listen to other elders in your family, in your neighborhood, at your university, and talk to people from other countries, read books from other countries, maybe blog posts, essays from other countries. All of these people have different paths, but they all lead to the same peak, the peak of Mount Fuji. So what ideas are best for you to get to your own, use your own path to get to that same peak where we all meet together?
So now, Jackie, we want to know more about what are you doing now? Like, what are your hobbies? What is the thing that is like your passion now?
My passion now? Well, it kind of ties in. That is an excellent question. It kind of ties in with my history. I am a fiber artist, and I think I sent you to some photos about my artwork.
Yes,
yeah. My father, I talked about my mother. I did not talk very much about my father. He was a jazz musician. His main instrument was the trumpet. He played jazz in Hollywood. He has always talked to me about art. And one of the important things I want to share with you, people experience art in many different ways. But one thing my father has told me is that he has said, we have a left brain and a right brain. We have the critical thinking and we have creativity. Our brains are in two halves. So we must exercise both halves to be a whole person. Using my father as an example, he was a jazz musician. He played the trumpet, but also he studied, now this was a long time ago, he studied radio signals, okay? He built his own radio from scratch. He bought the little, resistors and diodes and things like that and learned how to build it. And he was a radio operator, amateur radio operator. So he was training himself to use the right and the left brain. And I am so a little bit in that way that my university education was in computer systems. I ended up spending many years working as an office manager for my husband's law office over in the United States. And my right brain side is my artwork, my fiber artwork. So that was a very valuable lesson I learned from my father, and I encouraged that with all of you. Now, my business is called Thousand Cranes Enterprises. There is a very popular story that seems to be popular all over the world now, not just in Japan. It is about a young girl named Sadako, who, like my family, survived the atomic bomb. But some years later, she ended up developing leukemia from the radiation exposure. There was an old Japanese story, an old myth that says, if a person is very ill and this person folds 1,000 origami cranes, then they will be cured of all illness. And the story says this little girl at the atomic bomb hospital, where there were so many people with radiation sickness, she was a wonderful patient because she was very hopeful, folding her paper cranes, her origami cranes. But sadly, the story says she died before she was finished folding them. And she became a symbol of peace, love, and kindness among survivors of the atomic bomb. And at the Peace Memorial Park in Hiroshima, there is a big statue of her holding up the origami crane over her head. And since then, that story has symbolized peace. The origami crane has symbolized peace all over the world. And with my connection, my family connection with Hiroshima, I decided to name my business 1,000 Cranes Enterprises. And the photographs you see there, they are all connected to my feelings about my heritage and my feelings about beauty. And I'm a little bit emotional. I'm not quite sure what to say. I just am hoping that you will see that you can be a computer nerd like me and enjoy art and maybe even create your own art like I'm doing. It's possible, and it will enrich your life. Remember, your brain is half logic and half creativity. Be all that you are. All of you, be all that you are.
Thank you,
Any more
Jackie.
questions?
Yeah, as we see, art is very important in your life and in your dad's life. So that's why I want you to tell us why art is so important to be involucrated in our studies. Why everyone should be involucrated in arts. Why art is so important for someone. It's self-development.
Because I believe to be a whole person, to be one whole person, you must have balance. You must be balanced. Here is an example. If you exercise, to have balanced exercise, you must also stretch your muscles. If you run, you must stretch. If you play tennis, you must stretch. If you play basketball, you must stretch. You know that if you do not have that balance, you do not stretch, then you will pull a muscle and you will become injured. Okay, we know that that is the balance. Art is creativity. We must all exercise our creative muscles in our brains to achieve balance, along with the muscles that we work when it comes to logic. So I think many of you who are listening to this, you are engineers, you are doctors perhaps, you are chemists perhaps. Those all exercise the logical aspect of your brain. But what are you doing for the other half of yourself? It doesn't mean you must do art, but you must fill your life also with art. And that would be listening to music and understanding why do you like certain kinds of music and maybe not the others. Dance. Dance is art. Dance, please, everybody. And exercise the creative part of your brain in addition to going to university and studying. Okay, these are all important aspects of becoming a balanced person, a healthy, balanced person. I'll give you one more example. To be a samurai in Japan, it is required to be a balanced person. Not only did a samurai have to do many, many exercises and lots of training to become a good warrior with the sword, he also had to learn poetry and watercolor paintings because he was not a samurai if he was not balanced. Okay, so any more questions?
Yes. By the other way, I have a question about your project, 1,000 Cranes Enterprises.
Yes.
It's about like why you use these kinds of colors. They are really I don't know how to say it. Like it gives a colorful look. So we want to know why you use them instead of darkness colors.
I am attracted to colors. I that is really a difficult question. I enjoy lots of color. Many years ago, I met other artists who enjoyed expressing darkness. I think that is very important for many people. I must tell you that even though I am half Japanese, I am proud of being Otani. I also had a very difficult time being mixed race in Japan. So I had darkness in Japan when I was very young. And I had darkness when I had cancer 8 years ago. And I am finished with darkness right now. And I enjoy bright, I enjoy colors. It seems I am inspired and attracted by many colors, there are things in nature that inspire me. There are old photographs of old traditional kimonos with very unusual color combinations, which attract me. There are people I listen to, and they may have ideas that really touch my heart. And though in those situations, I see colors in my head, and I grab my box of Crayola and I start drawing out these colors so I won't forget. I love color. There was a point, I believe many people who practice art evolve. A good example is Picasso. When he moved into the blue period, he started doing things totally different than before because he was inspired by something. This is what I like to do now. This is what I've been doing for about 10, 15 years. And there's a very good chance I will have some experience that will completely change everything for me.
Okay, Jackie, I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
We see that you have a beautiful, not clouds, that's artwork. For me, it's artwork that. So I don't know if you have some inspiration of doing that, or also who are your influences? I don't know if someone influenced you to start doing this art.
My first project was the photograph with a lot of red, the shawl with a lot of red in it. And that photograph, that color combination, I call abstract number 10. We have a very good, very old family friend in the United States who is an abstract painter. And he sent me a photograph of a work he had finished. And the colors were so beautiful that I wanted to wear it. And that was my first piece, was abstract number 10. And it has ended up being my most popular color combination. I've had more orders for that piece than any of the other color combinations that I have created. So it was my first major inspiration was a friend's artwork, and the painting that he created made me want to create my own version of that painting so I could wear it. He became my mentor, and we've had many, many hours of discussion where we talk about color and what inspires us with color combinations. And I have practiced so that when I hear or see something that affects me emotionally, my mind immediately turns into colors that express those feelings of what I heard or what I saw. And one of the great things is get on the internet and start looking at artwork and start looking at what do those people, why do they come up with color combinations like that? It's gorgeous. The kahas, the color combinations among the moss and the lichen in the kahas on the rocks are just beautiful. So there are many beautiful color combinations also in nature. And we're close to the kahas. It's very nice to be able to go up and visit and hike and see all of those things. We have wonderful internet here in Cuenca, and we can get online and see beautiful, beautiful color combinations from all over the world. And I think that was my first step, was looking at color. Then I internalized those colors, and then I started to create colors in my head, combinations in my head when I see something that may not necessarily be beautiful, but creates feelings inside me. A dancer dancing. There was a woman I met who said some things to me which were amazingly profound, and it immediately turned into colors in my head. And I have a piece of paper where I use Crayola crayons and just made these color combinations so I would never forget. And someday I will knit or weave those colors. Did I answer your question okay?
Yes, Jackie, thank you.
Thank you.
If we have another question.
Yes, the last one of the project. I want to know how much time you spend in your work, and which one is your favorite one and why?
The time I spend in my work depends on the size of the project. I think my favorite one is the most popular one. That there was a photo there, the shawl with all the red and orange. You know, that is still my favorite because that is representative of our family friends painting, and so that is my favorite. A shawl that size will take me 23 hours to knit. Yes, that one will take me 23 hours. So right now I do many things. I have a house I take care of. My husband is older and he needs help. I have 3 dogs and 1 cat. I have many things to do, so I cannot spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing this. But even if it's 1 hour in a day, I will pull at something out and I will work on it. What's key, what's important to me is when I have my idea, I record it somehow. And usually with me, it has been Crayola crayons and just color out, draw out my idea, my color combination. So it's right there. And so when I'm sitting with my husband and we are watching news on the Reuters app, which is our favorite news source, and then I have my knitting out and I'm following my drawing and I'm knitting while listening to the news with my husband. So those are the things, the ways I incorporate my art into every day of my life.
Thank you,
Hey, Jack. And changing a little bit the topic, I think you appreciate very much music. You told us that your father was a jazz musician. So can you tell us about what are your preferences in music and why?
I do not have one favorite music. I have, I think the music I listen to most is jazz. And it is because of lessons I learned from my father on how to listen and how to hear art from that music. Also, my father loved classical music, and my husband plays the piano. So we have classical music in my home from playing the piano. I also love music from my era. I love my father and I had a talk once about why he and I like different genres of music. There are musicians in all different genres who are exceptionally skilled and talented and artistic. He and I can pick out a country western singer who is an artist versus a country western singer who can sell many albums but isn't very artistic, you know, things like that. So I like, from my generation, you know, I liked Earth, Wind and Fire disco music. I like Guns N' Roses hard rock. I like James Taylor, a folk singer. From my father's era, he played for the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra. So I like Tommy Dorsey. I love listening to that music. Currently, I love LP. She's an amazing musician. In letter L and the letter P. If you guys look her up on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. She's a musician I just love. Very, very a creative artist. Yeah. So I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, Jackie.
Thank you.
By the way, did you play any kind of instrument, or did you want to learn how to play anyone?
My father chose my instrument when I was a child. He told me the instrument that he learned the most technical lessons, it was the clarinet. So he chose that for me, and I played the clarinet for 6 years. And then when a new school year started, the school schedule was that I was stuck. The band class was the same time as my COBOL programming class in computers. So I had to decide which one. So playing music was a hobby, but COBOL programming language was going to be my university skills that I will need. So I dropped band music so that I could take my programming class. That's what I did. So that's when I stopped playing music. But it's still in my life. My father and I had many fascinating discussions where I listened to him and I learned so many things. And my husband plays the piano, like I said. So we have music here in my life every day.
Okay, thank you real much, Jackie. We really appreciate the time and the consideration, the confidence that you have give us to all this audience in order like to know more about you, everything that you have passed for. As I told you before, we really you have improved in many things. That's really notable. And now I want to know if anyone in the audience wants to make like any other question or something like that.
It could be in Spanish, no problem. We can translate to Jackie. Puede ser en español la pregunta. Si es que alguien tiene una pregunta para Jackie, la podemos hacer.
Hello, Jackie.
Hello.
Hello, it's Beatriz Quintero.
Hello.
I'm happy to meet you. It has been great to hear your story. I'm so sorry what happened with your family and your country, but that's the story, the history of the humanity, yeah? And thank you very much for sharing with us. Good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate that, and thank you for welcoming me to this program. It's an honor. It's an honor for me. Thank you.
Does anyone else have another question, please?
Okay, if there is no more questions, I have a final thought to express everyone. As you could hear the story of Jackie, I would like you to think on this quote I have. For you, what is beauty? I would like you to think on this phrase and analyze it, because Jackie told us very important things about it. And I think she answered it by herself, but I want you to ask yourself this question. If there is nothing to add, Jackie, we appreciate that you help us with this webinar, and we hope to see you soon.
Yes, yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Emily. I am very honored to be here for this opportunity. Thank you so
For
much.
us too, we thank everyone here that is present, and especially you for sure. This time it was excellent. Hope we can talk in soon.